Today, I want to break down one of the most important placements in astrology, the moon in all 12 houses. This is not just about learning astrology for entertainment. This is about understanding your emotional design, your natural responses, and the areas of life where you are most likely to feel safe, unstable, attached, or successful. The moon is the planet of the mind, emotions, comfort, habits, and subconscious patterns. So wherever it sits in your chart, that area becomes deeply personal to you. In simple terms, your moon placement shows what your heart wants before your logic gets involved. It shows what makes you feel emotionally secure, what drains you, and what kind of environment brings out the best in you. It also affects relationships because the moon reveals what you need from a partner on an emotional level. So if you understand the moon properly, you stop guessing why certain situations affect you so strongly. You start seeing your own emotional pattern clearly, and that makes better decisions much easier. Now, let's begin with the moon in the first house. When the moon is in the first house, the emotions become part of the person's identity. These people are usually easy to read. You can often tell what they are feeling just by looking at their face, their tone, or their body language. They tend to be sensitive, caring, expressive, and emotionally responsive to the people and atmosphere around them. This is why they often come across as warm, approachable, and human. They rarely feel like cold or detached personalities. Instead, they carry a softness that people notice right away. At the same time, this placement makes the person highly affected by the environment. If the people around them are negative, tense, or emotionally unstable, they absorb that quickly. If the environment is calm, supportive, and respectful, they usually do very well. That is why emotional boundaries matter so much for this placement. These people need to learn that not every feeling they pick up belongs to them. A lot of their stress comes from mixing their own emotions with the emotional atmosphere of the room. The first house moon can make a person very likable and emotionally magnetic, but it can also make them vulnerable. They may go through mood swings, self-doubt, or sudden emotional reactions when they feel unseen or misunderstood. Their emotional state often shows on their face before they even speak. This is why they usually do better when they stay close to people who are emotionally gentle, because harshness can hit them harder than it hits others. This placement can also create a strong connection to the mother, or at least to the emotional tone of early childhood. Many times, people with moon in the first house have a life story where emotional sensitivity was visible very early. They may have been the child who noticed everything, felt everything, and reacted quickly to changes in the family environment. In some charts, this can also create a strong desire for independence from emotional chaos later in life, because the person learns early that their inner peace matters. In relationships, moon in the first house usually wants softness, attention, and emotional understanding. These people often value a partner who notices their mood, cares about their state of mind, and does not make them feel emotionally neglected. They do not always want huge dramatic displays. Often, they just want presence, warmth, and consistency. A peaceful dinner, a calm conversation, a quiet weekend, or simple emotional reassurance can matter more to them than expensive gestures. Career-wise, this placement can support public-facing roles, caring roles, and work where emotional intelligence is important. These people often do well when their personal presence is part of the value they bring. Their image matters. Their mood matters. Their energy matters. If the chart supports it, this can also be a good placement for work connected to relocation, foreign settings, or any environment where adaptability is required. One of the main life lessons of the first house moon is learning not to let every emotion control the whole day. These people can be extremely powerful once they become emotionally self-aware. But if they do not understand their sensitivity, they can become overwhelmed by people, noise, pressure, and criticism. The more they learn to choose peaceful environments, the stronger they become. The practical takeaway is simple. Protect your mind, protect your environment, and protect your emotional energy. This placement is not weak. It is sensitive. That is a big difference. Sensitivity becomes strength when it is understood properly. If these people learn emotional discipline, they can become deeply intuitive, emotionally intelligent, and naturally comforting to others. Did you like this mind map? It's available to download on Patreon. The link is in the comments and description, and it's less than a cup of coffee. Let's move to the moon in the second house. When the moon is placed in the second house, emotions become tied to money, family, speech, food, and values. This is a very interesting placement because the second house is about what we build and keep, while the moon is always changing. So the person often experiences emotional movement around security, savings, food habits, and self-worth. They usually want to feel stable, but their emotional nature can create periods of fluctuation. A second house, moon often gives a soft voice, a pleasing speaking style, and a natural ability to communicate in a way that people trust. In many cases, the voice itself becomes an asset. This can help in singing, teaching, sales, content creation, public speaking, counseling, or any field where speech matters. People with this placement often know how to make others feel comfortable through the way they talk. This placement can also create strong attachment to family identity and early values. The person may feel deeply connected to their upbringing, culture, or family traditions. Money may not just represent wealth for them. It may represent emotional safety, family support, and the ability to live comfortably. Because of that, they often want financial stability more than financial show-off. They want life to feel secure. At the same time, the moon's fast-moving nature can create inconsistency in income patterns. These people may go through cycles of earning more and then earning less. If the moon is strong, those cycles can still be productive. But if it is challenged, the person may feel like their money, spending, and emotional state are all connected too tightly. In other words, if they are stressed, they may spend more, eat more, or react more strongly to money problems. The second house, moon, also affects food habits. Emotional eating is common here. These people may use food for comfort without even realizing it. They can crave sweetness, warmth, rich meals, or anything that gives a feeling of emotional nourishment. That is why they often need to be mindful of how emotion and appetite interact. When they feel insecure, they may overeat or overindulge. This placement also brings a strong relationship with the family line and the ability to carry family values forward. In many charts, it shows someone who can preserve and grow what the family has built. If the family has a business, assets, or tradition, this person may feel naturally responsible for carrying that forward. If the moon is well placed, they do that with care and emotional intelligence. Relationships for this placement are often tied to stability and shared values. These people are usually not impressed by empty charm alone. They want a partner who feels trustworthy, grounded, and emotionally steady. They may also value someone who speaks kindly and respects family boundaries. Harsh speech can hurt them deeply because the second house moon is very sensitive to tone. The most important lesson here is that emotional comfort and financial comfort are connected, but they are not the same thing. These people do best when they build steady habits around money, food, and speech. The way they speak, the way they spend, and the way they comfort themselves all shape their life experience. If you like this mind map, you can download it on Patreon. The link is in the comments and description, and it's less than a cup of coffee. Now let's continue with the moon in the third house. When the moon is in the third house, the mind becomes active, curious, expressive, and constantly engaged. These people usually do not like mental stagnation. They need movement, conversation, new information, and a sense that their brain is doing something useful. If life becomes too quiet or too repetitive, they can start feeling restless very quickly. This is one of the placements that naturally supports communication. People with moon in the third house often have a strong need to talk, write, explain, post, share, or connect through words. This can make them good at content creation, marketing, sales, media, journalism, teaching, or any career where communication is central. They may also be very intuitive about what people are feeling, which helps them read a room fast. The moon in the third house also connects strongly with short travel, movement, and local activity. These people often do well in jobs or businesses that keep them mobile. They may enjoy driving around the city, going to meetings, recording content, making calls, or staying active in their community. They are usually not built for a life that feels mentally frozen. They need flow. In relationships, this placement can create a strong bond through conversation. They often want a partner who can talk, listen, and keep the mental connection alive. A relationship can feel flat to them if communication is weak. For them, emotional connection is often built through regular interaction, not just through big emotional moments. There is also a strong connection to siblings, neighborhood energy, and the immediate environment. The person may be emotionally affected by the people living near them or by the tone of daily interaction. If the moon is afflicted, they can become mentally scattered, overly reactive, or too influenced by the opinions of others. If it is strong, they become expressive, adaptable, and socially sharp. One of the biggest strengths of this placement is the ability to turn ideas into movement. These people often learn by doing. They may prefer practical experience over pure theory. If they stay consistent, this can become a great placement for writing, publishing, social media, branding, short-form content, and business communication. The challenge is that the moon changes quickly, and so does the third house person's attention. They may start many things and lose interest too soon. They may change their mind often or react emotionally before they have fully thought something through. The lesson is to slow down enough to complete what they start. Did you enjoy this mind map? Download it on Patreon. The link is in the comments and description, and it costs less than a cup of coffee. Now let's talk about the moon in the fourth house. The moon feels very natural in the fourth house because this house is about home, comfort, emotional safety, inner peace, and the heart. People with this placement are usually deeply private, emotionally loyal, and strongly connected to family life. They're not always the loudest people in the room, but they often have a deep emotional presence that is easy to sense. This placement creates a strong need for peace and comfort. These people usually do best in a space that feels safe, warm, and familiar. A good home environment is not a luxury for them. It is a necessity. If their home life is disturbed, their emotional state is disturbed too. The fourth house moon often makes a person highly attached to the mother or to the emotional memory of the mother. The person may carry early family experiences very deeply, and those experiences can shape the way they build comfort in adulthood. This placement often gives a strong instinct to protect family, create a beautiful home, and care for the emotional well-being of the people they love. At the same time, this is often a comfort-loving placement. These people usually know how to enjoy privacy, quiet, and emotional ease. They may prefer working from home, staying in comfortable spaces, or building a lifestyle that feels soothing rather than chaotic. They often care about interiors, atmosphere, food, and the emotional feeling of a space more than most people do. This placement can also bring interest in property, land, vehicles, family assets, and roots. Many times, the person does well with things that create long-term security. They may want a stable home, a peaceful family life, or a property they can truly call their own. The desire for emotional comfort often becomes a major life force. In relationships, the fourth house moon is extremely loyal and nurturing. These people often want a partner who feels like home. They are not just looking for chemistry. They are looking for emotional trust, emotional warmth, and a real sense of belonging. If they do not feel safe, they may withdraw into their shell. This placement can also create a tendency to hide feelings instead of expressing them directly. That is one thing they must watch carefully. When they bottle things up too much, emotional pressure builds inside. They often need to learn how to open up slowly and honestly instead of pretending everything is fine. The biggest lesson of the fourth house moon is that comfort is powerful, but comfort should not become emotional imprisonment. These people need peace, but they also need growth. A stable home should support life, not replace it. When they use their emotional depth well, they can create an environment where others also feel safe and cared for. If you want this mind map, it's available to download on Patreon. The link is in the comments and description, and it's less than a cup of coffee. Now we come to the moon in the fifth house. The fifth house moon is one of the most creative and expressive placements. This is the house of intelligence, creativity, romance, children, performance, and personal talent. When the moon sits here, emotions want to flow through expression. These people often need to create something, teach something, write something, perform something, or bring imagination into the world. This placement can give a strong artistic streak. Many people with moon in the 5th house are naturally drawn to music, writing, filmmaking, design, social media, cooking, storytelling, or any form of creative self-expression. They often do well when they can turn feeling into something visible. In a modern context, this can be excellent for content creation, personal branding, or any work that mixes emotion with creativity. The 5th house also connects with children and nurturing. These people often have a warm, protective, and encouraging energy when it comes to children, students, or anyone they mentor. They may be naturally good at guiding others in a gentle, emotionally supportive way. They can be inspiring teachers because they lead with feeling, not just information. This placement can also support success through talent. In other words, it often shows the ability to earn through a skill, a creative gift, or an expressive ability. The person may not want a boring life where they do the same thing for decades. They want to feel emotionally alive in what they create. At the same time, the 5th house moon can make romance intense. These people may fall in love deeply and quickly. They often want warmth, affection, and emotional excitement in relationships. If the moon is challenged, they may go through dramatic emotional ups and downs in love, or become overly attached to the feeling of being desired. This placement can also create mental and emotional sensitivity around validation. If their creative work is ignored, they may take it personally. That is why they need to build confidence from within. Their gift is not just talent. It is the ability to bring feeling into form. When they trust that, they can become very powerful creatives. This mind map is available to download on Patreon. The link is in the comments and description, and it's less than a cup of coffee. Now let's look at the moon in the 6th house. The 6th house moon creates a person who is highly aware of work, routine, service, stress, and daily responsibilities. These people often function best when life has structure. They may feel emotionally better when they are busy, productive, and solving real problems. This placement often shows someone who can work hard for long hours. They may be naturally service-oriented and capable of handling responsibility. At the same time, the moon here can make the person emotionally affected by workplace stress, criticism, and conflicts with coworkers or clients. They may care deeply, but that care can become exhausting if they do not manage it wisely. The 6th house moon is often found in people who are drawn to healing, care work, health systems, hospitality, law, administration, and problem-solving roles. They may be good in environments where they help others, maintain systems, or fix what is broken. Their emotional nature gives them empathy, but their challenge is to keep that empathy from turning into stress. This placement can also create health sensitivity. These people may worry about their body, overthink symptoms, or become anxious about small issues. That does not mean they are doomed to bad health. It means they need to stay grounded and avoid mentally spiraling over every little thing. Routine, rest, and discipline matter a lot for them. In relationships, the 6th house moon may meet partners through daily routines, work environments, service settings, gyms, clinics, or places where life is structured. Their emotional life often mixes with duty. They may be very dependable, but they can also feel tired if they are always the one carrying responsibility. The biggest lesson of this placement is to serve without self-destruction. These people are often strong when they have a mission, but they must protect their energy. They should learn to work smart, not just work emotionally. If they do that, this placement can become highly productive and successful. You can download this mind map on Patreon. The link is in the comments and description, and it's priced below a cup of coffee. Now we come to the moon in the 7th house. The 7th house is the house of partnership, marriage, business relationships, public interaction, and one-on-one connection. When the moon is placed here, relationships become a major emotional focus in life. These people are often very aware of how others feel, how others react, and whether the people around them are emotionally present. They usually do not do well in cold, detached environments. They need emotional exchange. This placement often makes a person highly relationship-oriented. They want a partner who is attentive, responsive, and emotionally available. They usually want to feel seen in a relationship, not just technically committed to it. For them, emotional partnership matters as much as, or even more than, formal labels. At the same time, this moon can make a person dependent on relationship energy. Their mood may rise and fall based on how their partner behaves. If the relationship is good, they feel supported and emotionally stable. If the relationship is tense, they can become distracted, anxious, or emotionally unsettled very quickly. That is why boundaries and emotional maturity matter so much for this placement. In business, the 7th house moon can be very useful because it gives people skills. These people often know how to read clients, handle customers, negotiate, and keep the human side of business alive. They may naturally attract partnerships because they are responsive and relational. But in marriage, they have to be careful not to make the relationship their entire emotional center. This placement also often brings an awareness of public image. The person may care a lot about how they are received by others. In some cases, they may feel emotionally exposed in public. They can do well in public-facing roles, but they need to keep their private life protected because oversharing can create unnecessary emotional noise. The key lesson here is balance. These people are not meant to live in isolation, but they're also not meant to lose themselves inside another person. A healthy 7th house moon learns how to connect deeply without becoming emotionally dependent. When they master that, they can be excellent partners, negotiators, and relationship builders. Want the mind map? It's on Patreon. The link is in the comments and description, and it costs less than your coffee. Now let's move to the moon in the 8th house. The 8th house moon is one of the most intense placements in astrology. This is the house of transformation, hidden emotions, secrets, trust, vulnerability, research, and deep psychological change. When the moon sits here, the emotional life is rarely simple. These people often feel things deeply, privately, and sometimes painfully. This placement can create emotional depth and resilience, but it can also bring emotional turbulence. The person may go through sudden shifts in life, unexpected changes in family relationships, and emotional situations that force them to transform. They're often not the type to stay unchanged for long. Life pushes them inward, then changes them from the inside out. The 8th house, moon, often shows an interest in hidden knowledge. These people may be drawn to psychology, healing, trauma work, astrology, research, spirituality, or anything that goes beneath the surface. They usually dislike shallow explanations. They want the truth, even if it is uncomfortable. In relationships, trust becomes a huge theme. These people may struggle with fear of betrayal, emotional control issues, or the need to know everything. If they do not feel safe, they can become suspicious or guarded. The lesson is not to cling too tightly or try to control everything. Emotional intensity needs wisdom, not panic. This placement can also show deep transformation through losses, endings, or emotionally difficult chapters. But it can also produce real strength. People with this moon often become far more powerful after surviving something difficult. They may not appear dramatic on the outside, but inside, they carry a lot. The 8th house moon is also connected with shared resources, inheritance, joint finances, and the emotional side of dependency. Sometimes this can bring complications in money matters or family entanglements. The person has to be careful about expectations, secrecy, and emotional attachment that becomes too heavy. This placement is not easy, but it is profound. It gives emotional intelligence that comes from real experience, not surface-level understanding. If used well, it can create a deeply intuitive, healing, and psychologically powerful person. If this helped you, the mind map is available on Patreon. The link is in the comments and description, and it's less than a coffee. Now let's go to the moon in the 9th house. The 9th house is the house of wisdom, higher learning, belief systems, teachers, travel, philosophy, and long-term direction. When the moon is placed here, the person needs meaning. They want to understand life in a bigger way. They are not satisfied with shallow answers or empty routines. These people often have a strong connection to teachers, mentors, spiritual guides, or anyone who expands their worldview. They may learn a lot from travel, education, or exposure to different cultures. Their emotional growth often comes through experience, not just theory. The ninth house moon usually brings a philosophical mind. These people may ask big questions about purpose, religion, morality, success, and destiny. They often do best when they have a vision that stretches beyond the immediate moment. They are not usually built for instant gratification. They want a path that feels meaningful over time. This placement can also support teaching, consulting, coaching, publishing, international work, and professions connected to travel or guidance. In many charts, it gives respect through knowledge and perspective. People often listen to them because they feel like they have thought things through. In relationships, this moon can connect a person to partners through travel, education, or shared beliefs. They often want someone who respects their worldview and expands their life rather than shrinking it. If the moon is afflicted, they may keep changing beliefs or chasing new directions without settling into one path long enough to grow from it. The lesson of the ninth house moon is to trust growth, stay curious, and build a life with direction. These people need a larger frame for life, not just a daily routine. When they align with wisdom and long-term vision, they become inspiring and uplifting to others. For the full mind map, check Patreon. The link is in the comments and description, and it's cheaper than a cup of coffee. Now let's move to the moon in the 10th house. The 10th house moon is strongly tied to career, public standing, responsibility, and achievement. This is one of the most work-oriented moon placements. These people often feel emotionally alive when they are accomplishing something, leading something, or building a visible life. This placement can create strong ambition and public recognition. The person may be seen by others as responsible, visible, active, and career-focused. They often care about reputation and results. In many cases, they rise through public work, leadership, management, or a role where people depend on them. At the same time, the moon in the 10th house can make work stress spill into personal life. These people may carry office tension, home, or let career pressure affect their emotional world. That is one of the main challenges here. If they do not separate professional stress from private life, they can feel emotionally overloaded. This is also a placement that can show multiple career changes or multiple sources of income. Because the moon is always moving, the person may not want one rigid career forever. They may grow through variety, public responsibility, or changing goals. They often need work that feels alive rather than repetitive. The 10th house moon can make a person very image conscious. They may care a lot about how they are perceived in the world. In the best case, this gives discipline, visibility, and influence. In the worst case, it can create pressure to always appear successful, even when they are emotionally tired. The key lesson is to build a career without losing your emotional center. These people do best when they keep work, identity, and feelings in healthy balance. When that happens, this placement can bring strong status, leadership, and public impact. You can find this mind map on Patreon. The link is in the comments and description, and it's available for less than a cup of coffee. Now, let's discuss the moon in the 11th house. The 11th house is the house of gains, networks, social groups, audience, friendships, and long-term wishes. When the moon is placed here, the person often benefits through people. Connections matter, community matters, visibility matters. These people usually have a natural ability to network. They may know how to meet the right people, stay socially active, and turn relationships into opportunities. This is a strong placement for business, social media, marketing, sales, commissions, audience building, and anything where growth comes through people and reach. The 11th house moon often brings fluctuating income, especially if the chart supports business or public activity. Money may come in waves rather than in a perfectly straight line. These people can do very well, but the path is often dynamic. Their gains may depend on timing, audience growth, and the strength of their network. This placement can also create mixed experiences with friends. The person may have many social contacts, but not all of them are deeply trustworthy. They may learn that some friends help them grow while others distract them, or drain them. So this moon teaches discernment in friendships. In a modern context, this is a very useful placement for online creators, influencers, community builders, and entrepreneurs who work through visibility. These people often do well when they are open, active, and present in the public sphere. They attract people easily. The lesson of the 11th house moon is to use social energy wisely. Do not just collect contacts. Build real value through them. When that happens, the placement can be highly rewarding financially and socially. The mind map for this placement is on Patreon. The link is in the comments and description, and it's less than a cup of coffee. Finally, let's talk about the moon in the 12th house. The 12th house moon is inward, private, spiritual, and deeply sensitive. This is the house of solitude, retreat, foreign places, dreams, the subconscious, and emotional release. When the moon is here, the person often needs time alone to process life. Too much noise, stimulation, or negativity can quickly drain them. These people may be highly intuitive. They often pick up on what is not being said. Their dream life can be strong, and they may feel a deeper connection to spiritual or healing practices. Some of them naturally gravitate toward meditation, therapy, yoga, retreat spaces, or behind-the-scenes work. At the same time, the 12th house moon can bring emotional confusion, isolation, anxiety, or a tendency to absorb negativity. These people must be careful about what they consume mentally. The news, social media, dramatic environments, and emotionally heavy people can affect them more than they realize. This placement is often connected with foreign lands, long-distance living, or hidden sources of support. It can also bring interest in hospitals, healing, spiritual service, charity, and compassionate work. When used well, the 12th house moon becomes deeply wise and emotionally evolved. The biggest lesson here is energetic hygiene. These people need silence, rest, boundaries, and spiritual or emotional renewal. They are not meant to live with constant stimulation. They are meant to recover in private and return stronger. If you want to download the mind map, it's waiting for you on Patreon. The link is in the comments and description, and it's less than a cup of coffee. So that was the moon in all 12 houses. And now you can see that astrology is not just about prediction. It is about understanding your emotional blueprint. Your moon shows where your mind feels safe, where it feels restless, and where it naturally seeks comfort, growth, and stability. Once you understand your moon placement, you stop taking your emotional patterns so personally. You begin to see that some reactions are not random. They are built into the way you experience life. And when you understand that clearly, you can make better choices in relationships, career, money, and daily life. The real power of astrology is not fear. The real power is awareness. Because awareness gives you control over your responses, and that changes the kind of life you create. So the more you understand your chart, the more intentionally you can live. I hope this helped you. Subscribe, and I'll meet you with another video soon.